Americans don't read history. They don't even know their own country history. But when you look at the history of Liberia, it's the history of America. We have the same flag, the same constitution, the same kind of government. The first 10 presidents of Liberia were white Americans. Americans, white people. And so when we come here, we love this country. I'm part of the military. I'm part of the military presently. And because we love this country, and like I said, the history of Liberia is the history of America. And I appreciate Mr. Ray, Mr. Suarez for telling the story of immigrants.
All right, Thomas. Let's get a response from Ray Suarez.
Well, Liberia is one of the few African countries that has a long history of contact with the United States. Unlike the European powers that divided up Africa in the late 19th century and basically just carved it up like they were carving up a birthday cake, the United States stood apart from that. And Liberia was established as a home for freed slaves from the United States, and there was transportation, shipment of freed people who wanted to go back to Africa, and a movement in the United States to help Africans who wanted to get back to Africa to go to Liberia. Liberia's had a troubled history in much of the time since then. The displacement and the domination of the native-born people of that part of the West African coast is a very tangled and unhappy story. But Liberians do have a connection with the United States that makes it one of the places that they have fled to when they had to leave the country during the terrible recent past. I mean, between Sierra Leone and Liberia, Burkina Faso, some other countries, there have been some terrible wars in West Africa. And this has become a haven, a place of safety for people like Thomas and many, many others. So it's a great story. And yeah, I mean, when Thomas says Americans should know their history better, I fully agree. And certainly on this topic, it's one that is endlessly fascinating. But, you know, because we didn't have a big network of colonies throughout the world, the way France and Britain did, the way Germany wanted to, and then had them all taken away after the First World War. We don't have those kind of connections. As an earlier caller noted, our connections have been commercial. When you talk about the history of United Fruit in Central America, you're talking about instead of going and taking over other countries the way the British did, we had our companies go places and become very important parts of the way those countries were run. And it's a different kind of relationship, and it has made people both admire and love and fear the United States in other places in the world. It's very, very complicated. But I think on balance, the country is still pretty well thought of in the rest of the world in ways that I think are not totally appreciated by Americans here in the United States.
For our viewers,